I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody can hear me and everybody's connected. Like I said, you can use the chat box if there are questions. I can try and unmute some folks, but I know that there's a lot of things going on and some people are trying to multitask. It's a busy school day for a lot of us, so feel free just to either raise your hand if you have a question. There should be a little hand button if you want to indicate that you need to say something and you're having trouble with the mute, or you can type into the chat box. I do apologize there was some confusion around connecting in and how to do that. The posting for the webinar was posted on the 11th, and so it made it look as if it were on the 11th, and I know that some folks have called and had some questions around that. So hopefully everybody's here who wanted to be here. I will go ahead and say as well, this entire thing will be recorded and posted, so if for some reason folks are having trouble connecting or they want to include some other people in this, it will be posted on most likely OTAP's website and ours as well, along with some additional trainings that we'll talk more about in the next 30 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Please feel free to ask questions through the chat box, and we will be monitoring those as we go as well. I really hope everybody can hear me. So the reason we are here today is to talk about instructional materials and making them accessible for students primarily with disabilities. And so there was some information that went out from the legislature last year around professional development provided annually for accessible materials for electronic resources. And so this is being done just to support that work in districts and hopefully reach out to some classroom teachers who may be struggling with how to help kids who need materials in alternate formats. So let's go. So the things we're going to hit on today are really going to be about AIM, Accessible Instructional Materials, and just sort of what it is and the legal requirements around it. This really today is an overview. It's just an overview that's really going to introduce kind of what our plan is for the rest of this year and what OTAP is going to do to help support kind of the work that's happening in districts around professional development. So today's webinar is not very informative in terms of exactly what AIM is other than the legal requirements, but you'll hear kind of about what's going to happen over this next school year that may be beneficial to you or the staff in your districts. I'm going to share a little bit about House Bill 2426, which some of you read about when you read the announcement about this webinar, so I'll share kind of what the background is on that and where that came from. We will talk a little bit about the trainings that are going to come out over the next year. There will be a monthly video training that will just be posted and available for folks to use in their districts however they need. And then really at the end, we're going to be asking for information from you via the chat box or the email if possible, whatever is going to work best. And so we're going to be asking you mute somebody here. We're going to be asking you what training you would like to hear about over this next year. So, and then hopefully provide you some resources for educators, administrators, and families. So again, this is the overview of today. We will be done at 4. I will let you know the WebEx is scheduled to be done at that point, so it will end. And if you have additional questions or concerns, always feel free to email us, and we can definitely help support that. So I'm going to try this, and this may or may not work because of the new format, but we do have a WebEx poll, and so WebEx has the ability to ask questions, and you can respond. It will be anonymous, and you will have the opportunity to just share this, and so we can kind of find out what's going on. So I'm going to try and open these polls. If they don't work, we'll just skip through them. But there's a question that you should see on your right screen. It hasn't opened yet, but it'll ask this question, and it'll give you about 30 seconds to answer. So we'll see if this works. It is now open, and if you see that on your right screen, there's a question around who is participating. So if you can go ahead and just answer those, and it looks like it's working. It's very exciting. Give you just a couple minutes to see who's here. As I said, it is anonymous, so we won't know who's putting what answer. We'll just see the results. 3 seconds. All right. So it looks like the majority, we have a lot of SPED administrators here in the room, and I can share these apparently they take 20 seconds to share, so I'm going to go through this quickly. So we do have some SPED administrators in the room and definitely some district officers. Glad to have everybody here. Another one. I'm going to remind everyone to mute their phone. I have to mute it for you. So here's another question. On a scale of 1 to 4, how would you rate your knowledge of requirements around accessible instructional materials? I'm actually not going to question because it does take 20 seconds to save one, so we're going to keep going. But I'm going to mute some. I'm going to say it again. Your phones. Okay, so let's keep going. So accessible instructional materials really talk about educational materials in different formats, and primarily that talks about Braille, large print, audio, and digital. The really important thing to remember about AIM is it does not change the content. So we have a lot of questions sometimes that come through around, is this an accommodation, is this modification? Accessible instructional materials really just take the exact information and they just put it in a format that makes it accessible to students who need it in a different format. So here's a quick quiz question for you, actually. So accessible instructional materials are, and so this is a question around what are they? So there are some quiz questions built into this. I think we're going to make this the last one because it does take too long to save the results. But looks like most people had this one right. So in terms of what they are, instructional materials actually are all of the above. So they are used in instruction to help students meet curricular IEP goals. They are materials provided in specialized formats, and they are also to be provided to students with disabilities. There is some information that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes around students without print disabilities and should they receive materials in alternate formats. So I get a lot of questions around what is a print disability. It's a term that we are not very familiar with in special education, and that's really primarily because it's a copyright definition. So under U.S. copyright law, the term print disability really refers to people with disabilities who cannot read or understand standard print material because of, and it's very specific, it's because of blindness, visual impairments, physical limitations, or reading disabilities from an organic dysfunction, which is probably a topic for another day, but we can get into that if there are questions. So print disability is a copyright term, and it really has to do with receiving materials free of charge because of your disability. So that when you hear that term print disability, that's what it's referring to. And that's really why we're not very familiar with it, is because it's a copyright term. So legal requirements. There are many laws pertaining to accessible instructional materials. As you just heard, copyright law for sure has several pieces in it. The Chafee Amendment, so copyright law really came out 1931 or right around there, I believe, and then there were some changes throughout the years. In the 50s, there were some specific requirements added around people with visual impairments and blindness, and then later there was some specific pieces around folks who have disabilities with physical limitations, meaning it makes them difficult to sometimes hold the books or hold the text, different things like that. And so there are pieces of copyright law that really impact getting materials in alternate formats, and the Chafee Amendment is the most recent one, which came out in 1996 and really refers to, that's where the term print disability comes from, and that's when they added the term reading dysfunction or reading disability because of organic dysfunction. IDEA does also refer to accessible instructional materials, as do our Oregon state laws. I'll share those with you here. So talked about copyright and Chafee. So IDEA, if you look in, and I put these here, we won't go into necessarily all of them, but it's there for you to have access to if you want to look up, but it is referenced in IDEA 2004 two separate times, really around the purchase of them and then having access to instructional materials. And then if you look in our Oregon administrative rules, you'll see them in several places. The first one that's listed on your screen, the 581011, those are our textbook policies. So if you look in the OARs around textbook adoption, there are some requirements in there around making sure that when materials are purchased, that the consideration of students with print disabilities and students who need materials in alternate format is part of that consideration when making those purchases. The 15s there, 581015, those are the special education rules, and there are definitely some areas in there around accessible instructional materials. And then the 22s are specific to school-wide, and you'll see those again around textbook independent adoption of materials. So this is kind of the crux of it right here. So this is the one of our special education rules, and if you look, it says school districts must ensure the timely provision, we'll talk about that as well in just a sec, timely provision of print instructional materials, including textbooks that comply with NIMUS for students who are blind or print disabled. But then the second part goes on and says, must ensure timely provision of instructional materials in accessible formats to all students who need them, including those who are not blind or print disabled. So it's really important to remember that even though under copyright law there is a term about print disability where it's specific to those students who are eligible to receive instructional materials free because of the copyright law and the Chafee Amendment, we do have it very clear in our OARs that if a student does not fall under one of those four categories under the Chafee Amendment, they should still be receiving materials in a format that they need to be able to access curriculum. We have defined timely manner in Oregon. Some states have not. Actually, one of those things that has been left up to states how they define what a timely manner means, and this is a question that we get a lot. So in Oregon, we have defined timely materials being available at the same time materials are available to students who do not need materials in alternate formats. So pretty important to consider when, especially for students who need materials in Braille or large print, some of those things take quite a bit of time to create. And so when you're making considerations for students in the next school year, it's one of those things that, you know, it's really important to start thinking about those materials because under Oregon rule, those materials should be available at the same time. And sometimes that's challenging. We have students that move in, we have students that move out. Definitely do the best we can when that happens, but just know that one of the things that if curriculum decisions are being made over the summer or at the last minute, there needs to be consideration for students who might need alternate formats because they must be provided at the same time as other students who get those materials. And I'll just remind everyone again, if you have questions, you can feel free to use the chat box, and there will be some time at the end as well. And this is being recorded, so it will be up and available. So if you look at those OARs, it really talks about all instructional materials. It does not refer just to print materials, and that's one of the other areas of confusion because copyright law really talks about print material, but if you look at Oregon Administrative Rules, it really says all instructional materials. So a lot of districts are moving towards using more digital material and online materials for instruction, which is fantastic. It just means that there still needs to be consideration of the format of the material. And there's definitely a misconception that digital means accessible, and it doesn't always mean accessible, as some of us have known if we've tried to manipulate PDFs or anything like that. We need to make sure that just because it's digital, it doesn't mean it's going to work for all kids. So it's a consideration. So kind of the reason we're here today, there was a House bill last summer that went through, House Bill 2420. If you're interested in reading it, if you love to read legal documents, it's fascinating. You can definitely Google the House bill and you will see the interesting thing about this House bill is the majority of it is about personal electronic devices, which is why this little piece kind of got missed. And there's a piece in the House bill that actually says that the districts are required to provide professional development, and district personnel are required to receive professional development annually related to online resources that enable students with print disabilities to receive instructional materials free of charge. And the reason that got added into this bill is really because we see more students now using personal electronic devices, and districts are creating policies around them. And as districts are creating these policies, we need to be thinking about what does that mean around professional development for teachers and staff who are working with students who may need alternate formats. There's also a piece in there around district school boards should consider whether textbooks and instructional materials are available through online resources free of charge when making adoption decisions and instruction. So for what's happening now, what we've decided to do in trying to support this is OTAP, the Oregon Technology Access Program, and the Department of Ed are trying to support in this professional development requirement by making some video modules. So what's going to happen after this point is each month for the rest of the school year, there will be a new short, probably 20 minutes maximum, little video training that will be posted on a different topic related to online resources and accessible instructional materials. And really the hope is that it's available for districts, it's available for teachers and for families and people who are looking for more information about accessible materials. And so these are going to be created, and we're going to be asking you here shortly if you have topics that you feel like would best benefit folks. But every month there will be a new video posted, and it will be posted on OTAP's website. It will be linked from our website at Oregon Department of Education, and so they will be available to use. And then we are available to attend regional curriculum meetings, director meetings, professional development if you would like it. We're trying to just be a resource. So if there's something that you need around access to curriculum, and especially if it comes down to textbook adoptions and online resources, just give us a call, either ODE or OTAP. You have, this is Melissa, you have my email, and you'll get some information here at the end around how to contact us. But if there are things that you need around this piece of it, we would love to just come and support you. So in trying to brainstorm what this is going to look like, we have the first couple months already kind of planned out. These videos are not going to be live. This is the only WebEx webinar we are doing on the topic, and it's, like I said at the beginning, this is just to introduce you to what is happening and what's going on. But in October, by the last day of October, we will have a video module specific to Bookshare. And so Bookshare is an online resource. We've actually just gotten some new guidance from Bookshare specific to who can access this, and it's actually a wider audience than we previously thought. So Bookshare is a resource for teachers, for students who may need digital or electronic or audio textbooks, and so, or audio reading books and textbooks. If you access it through, you can access the NIMAC through Bookshare. But we will do in October. We will create a short 15-20-minute video specifically around how to create an account, who is eligible to have membership for Bookshare, how you download them, how you access them, all of that stuff. And so we're hoping to hit on that because it's a fantastic free resource for teachers, for really any students who might have a disability. And so November, we've had a request that we really start thinking about smarter balanced accommodations that require technology. And so we have some folks that are going to help us in creating a video specific to the different accommodations that are available in Smarter Balanced, what they look like, how they're used, what they sound like. So if you think text-to-speech, some information on that, how exactly you can use that and what that's going to look like, because it's definitely become a big question, it seems like, around, what do these accommodations look like for Smarter Balanced. So those are sort of our ideas for the next couple months of videos that we'd like to post. We have kind of started brainstorming, and this is where we would love to hear from you, either through email or chat, but some of the other topics that folks have recommended that we do a video training on are things like built-in tools or regularly used devices. So there are definitely programs that computers have and options that computers have to change the format or make something more accessible, using text-to-speech, things like that in regularly used devices on iPads and computers and PCs. We've talked about bringing in folks on personal electronic devices and really focusing on that House bill and what's happening with the policies around personal electronic devices. We would love to have some information about Talking Books in Braille, very similar to Bookshare, but it's an Oregon-specific organization. We've had questions around how to document this in the IEP, a lot of questions around purchasing accessible materials and how that works, assistive technology, instructional technology, NIMAC, NIMAS, and then others, just other things that you think would be great short video people benefit from. At this point, it would be fantastic, and we can do this a number of ways. Someone has a dog barking. There we go. So at this time, if you can use your chat window, and either we can brainstorm some ideas here, or you're more than welcome to just email with ideas and questions. We will try to communicate via multiple modes at this point, because we're starting to realize that this is bigger than just a special education question. This is, how do we get this information to our general education teachers who are working to support kids as well? So we'll continue to send information out via the typical routes, but definitely would like to hear from you around what information you'd like to hear from us. We do have some questions. We have a question around, will you have a training with general education teachers as the specific audience? I think that is a fantastic idea, and I would hope that we can get this, at the very least, this webinar posted and out. And unfortunately, we don't have, and I would love some suggestions on this, we don't have a really good way to reach general education teachers as a whole. There's not a specific listserv. We do have a math and language arts listserv, so I think we can go with that. But I definitely think general ed teachers would be, we do need to get this out. And this can be shared because it will be posted. So there's a question around, what if districts aren't providing this? Are there any repercussions? Are parents being informed of this law? So I'm assuming this is referring to the professional development and that piece of it. At this point, there is no tracking of the professional development, and if it's being provided annually, it's something that it is the law, and it's something districts are expected to do. But ODE will definitely not be calling and saying, did you provide it to everybody? It comes down to the responsibility of the school district to provide training on accessibility. We did have a question, can AIM be added to page 2 of the IEP form? I'm assuming the special factors piece that actually is coming out if you are coming to the COSA SPED conference next week, or if you are attending any of the SPR&I trainings. Yes, AIM will be added as a special factor to the new IEP starting in 2015, and that as well will be posted hopefully in this next month once it gets through our forms police. Is the law focused on SPED folks, Gen Ed folks, or both? It's really focused on both. So the specific wording, and I really would encourage everyone to go look it up, specifically says in the House bill, I'm going to butcher it probably, but it says any person working with students with print disabilities needs to be provided annual professional development. So it really is specific to whoever is working with the student, which could also include educational assistants, something to think about. Lots of questions here that may need to get emailed because they are going quickly. Where can we learn more about a reading disorder of an organic dysfunction, and what exactly does that mean? So organic dysfunction, reading disability, under copyright law, that one is really specific to, you think about more neurological reasons for reading disability. And it's outdated, I will say that right now. And if you talk with Bookshare, if you talk with even OSEP, some of the information that has come out in the last year has really been around the information that we've learned about the brain over the last several years has really gone towards the way of, in those 4 categories under copyright law, reading disability really starts to fall under physical disability at this point and not the reading disability of an organic dysfunction. So we will have a lot of information about that in the Bookshare training next month, specifically between reading disability of organic dysfunction and what that means, because Bookshare has asked that if you have students with reading disabilities and it's not a result of an organic dysfunction, so a medical doctor did not say that there's a reading disability because of organic dysfunction, Bookshare has said sign that student up under physical disability. Okay, so let's see, please show a list of potential topics again. So these are some of the potential topics. And again, please email me. Some people have really sent in already some private messages on some topics, so that's going to be fantastic. There's a question around how are they going to assess a student if a student can benefit from accessible instructional materials. That's a pretty common question too, around how do you make the decision of if a student needs accessible instructional materials. And so there are some flow charts on our site to help support that, and OTAP is a fantastic resource. But I would agree with the person who sent that in. That might need to be one of our monthly topics around how do you make that decision? How does an IEP team determine if a student needs AIM? So we are at time, and I know there are a couple other questions, but please feel free to email or call. Let's see if I have. So my email is there, and anyone can just send me a quick email, and I'll help connect you with OTAP. Or if you just want to send an email and say, hey, have this on a video training, please send it in. We will definitely try and accommodate. And we might find that this goes on beyond the school year. I mean, if there are a lot of requests. I am putting up just a list of resources that some folks can look at. This is an introduction, it's a beginning webinar. And so please share this. Once we get this posted, please feel free to share this with your general education teachers, with your building principals and building vice principals. I think it's really important that folks are aware of some of these. But our hope is that over this next year, we can really help support trainings and what's happening in the district. All right, if there are no final burning questions, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye. I hope everyone got a quick little glimpse of what's going to be happening. And again, just feel free to call or email with questions, and we will definitely connect you. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic day. We will let you know when this is posted, hopefully via multiple modes of communication.